influence, paving the way for diversity in travel. And we'll specifically be looking at how travel brands can really utilize diverse mix of influencers to kind of have a big impact. And we all know companies both big and small have really started to realize the importance of multicultural marketing within their actual brands and organizations, and have started really incorporating more diversity into their marketing campaigns. So when you really stop to think about it, travel is perhaps one of the only things that we have in common, regardless of gender, race, age, disability, or religion. And it's a common goal that we all share. And tonight, I have a diverse mix of panelists who will be able to share their views and insights into the industry. I want to just introduce you to Amy Skelding, a partner at Finn Partners. Amy describes herself as a tenacious, creative, and self-confessed grammar nerd. And those of you who know her will agree. Amy has over a decade of experience in travel and lifestyle PR. And she has spoken and moderated many panels and was also named as one of the TTG Tomorrow's Travel Leaders in 2013. Always keen to stay ahead of the curve, Amy has been working with travel bloggers and notable digital influencers to create meaningful campaigns for many years, and she's not afraid to challenge and discuss the evolution of the industry. Thank you, Amy, for joining us. Amy by two. We have Ursula Barzi, who is the founder of Caribbean & Co., an award-winning digital platform and blog promoting Caribbean travel and luxury lifestyle. The website launched in June 2014, and it provides insight on things to do, where to stay, plus living and working in the Caribbean region. Ursula is also our award-winning CTO, Best of the Best social media campaign winner, and some other big notable awards as well. And I know she was one of the most impactful influencer for the Grenada Tourist Authority as well last year. And then we have Esra Al-Hamal. She was an influencer with Arabian Wanderess. She's a Saudi travel content creator based here in London, and she basically documents her journey traveling the world as a Muslim millennial, looking for fun, women-friendly experiences on ArabianWanderess.com with articles, photos, and videos. Esra has been featured on The Independent and The New York Times. Last but not least is Richard Trassler, our only male on the panel. He is a marketing professional. Richard works with the Cayman Island Department of Tourism, and he's a marketing professional with over 10 years experience in multi-sector travel industry. Richard has worked across a range of high-profile marketing, digital, and influencer consumer campaigns to raise awareness and a broad range of holiday experiences to a younger demographic in the UK and European market. So here we are, our four panelists for tonight. And I wanted to kick off the questions with Amy, of course. Amy, what do you think are some of the benefits that can be achieved from utilizing a diverse mix of influencers to target a range of different ethnicities, race, disabilities? What are some of the kind of key benefits of utilizing that diverse?
So I think the first thing is, the sad thing is for many of the men in this room, that white Anglo-Saxon Protestants are no longer cool. So Donald Trump's taught us that that's no longer in, and diversity is in, inclusivity is in. And if you look at what other brands are doing outside of the travel industry, you know, sorry Rich, but this is what the future looks like if you're a robot. But if you look at what other brands are doing outside of the travel industry, you've got something like Misguided, a fashion brand, that they have a whole campaign about female flaws, and all their models look different. They're big, small, tiny, you know, the whole range. They're all different nationalities and races. And it's actually about celebrating what makes everyone individual. And you've got things like, did anyone see the Malteser advert with the disabled women in it that obviously the Daily Mail got upset about? But it's about kind of that everyone is different, and actually that's now in, and brands are actually using that because That's what makes them seem authentic. That's what resonates with people, that actually it gives them something that's beyond just being, you know, a bland white landscape of this is what the consumer looks like. And I think the way it works for us when we're working with influencers in travel is that minority groups generally tend to work peer-to-peer. So if someone looks like you or travels like you are going to believe them more, it's more authentic. And so what we've done with a lot of the influencers that we've worked with, we've not specifically gone, right, are you 3 foot and do you tick this box? And it doesn't quite work like that. But if you are a very good content creator, if you've got an example of someone like, someone we took to Antigua actually last year was Deja Shu, she's British, I think she's British Chinese, and she started off kind of really being obsessed by Asian food. But she's a great foodie content creator, and so we work with her not just on Asian trips, but on Caribbean trips or anywhere in the world, because she's good, she knows about food, it just happens to be that she's Asian, or British Asian. So it's using people for their skill, and then if they don't look homogenised, it's the bonus on top, but I think the content is key.
Do you think, Amy, just quickly, do you think the whole trend in diversity across the board, from travel to fashion to music to all these industries, do you think this is kind of spearheaded by the millennials who are, you know, more interested in being, want to be seen in marketing campaigns, and they want to see their faces because they relate to the campaign?
Yeah, so one of the things that, so Borderless Live is coming up in September, and Michael Ball at Traverse was telling me that one of the things that they are doing with Borderless Live is letting real people come, not just influencers and brands, because 16-year-olds nowadays, their #1 job choice is to be an influencer. They all want to be YouTubers. That's the job that they want to do, because they're seeing people like them. I think that's changed, shifting the paradigm a bit. You know, it used to be everyone wanted to be Angelina Jolie, and it's so unattainable. But when you've got someone like Zoella telling you how to put on the blusher, it feels real, and it feels like a normal person is talking to you in normal language, that it feels like you can almost touch and feel it, and they could be walking amongst you. So I think that that's where there's still definitely a place for the celebs and the journalists and need that sort of media, but putting it into the marketing mix is really important, because it makes it feel attainable.
Ursula, I'm going to jump to you. You're very well traveled within the Caribbean. You've worked with a number of tourist boards in the Caribbean travel region specifically, so I'm going to narrow it down a bit. How important do you think is diversity when selecting influencers for campaigns and telling the story of the Caribbean region?
I think it's extremely important. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the bottom line. And so, if you want to get market share of the pound from Black people, Asian people, whatever, they need to see themselves in your marketing campaign. One of the things too with the Caribbean region is that it's quite diverse. But for most people who don't know the Caribbean region, they don't think it's diverse, because all they see is sun, sand, and sea. And so most people cannot tell the difference between Antigua, Barbados, Jamaica. And so if you choose the same type of influencer or journalist, for that matter, they're going to tell a similar story. And while you may reach a very large audience, you're missing out on other opportunities by not, having people who are going to explore other avenues. With myself, I tend to focus on, history and culture. I ask all the questions, because part of it is that I'm from the Caribbean. I grew up in the U.S. I now live here, but I'm asking the stories that, I don't know, that I want to know. Also, there's a difference between someone like myself who was born in the Caribbean and my sister who was born in the U.S. Now, you might assume that, she is Caribbean, so, she is, very much, diaspora, so she's into the Caribbean. Not really. And so if we're assuming that that second, third generation that, lives in the UK, lives in the US, Canada, the major markets, it's not guaranteed, because sun, sand, and sea, they can get that in the US, they can get that in, Europe, very cheaply in Asia. So it's like we have to market to these groups, and that involves telling the history, telling the story on your trips, who can, ask different questions and, do different angles of your story. So yeah, focusing on food, if it's art, if it's culture, whatever it is. I mean, if you look at my content, I am not the star of my content. Yes, you will see, photos of me, but it's very much about the destination. And you'll see different types of imagery. So, yes, I'll have beach shots, but it will primarily not be about beach shots. Because I could be in the Maldives, I could be in Spain, in Barcelona. So it's like we have to do more than talk about sun, sand, and sea. And that's where having, diversity comes into play.
I'm glad that you mentioned the third and fourth generation. We recently did a study with the Voice newspaper, and we looked, we kind of interviewed we surveyed over 1,800 African Caribbean travelers. And one of the key things, because there was this misconception that people of Caribbean heritage, they will automatically travel back to the Caribbean. This research kind of showed that that's a myth. They are traveling, and they are traveling, and they're traveling very widely and taking multiple 3-4 trips a year, staying in accommodations. And one of the key things that they say is, when they go back to the Caribbean, it's not about going to visit friends and family. That's not what's key to them, especially the millennial demographic. They want to experience the hotels, they want to experience all the different cultural activities. So working with an influencer like yourself, or having a more diverse mix of influencers, because these third and fourth generations, they feel as though they're not being spoken to in terms of the Caribbean, the marketing of the Caribbean region. So how is it that we really know how to look at how we can really target them and get them to travel back to the Caribbean? Because it's a profitable market that we are pretty much missing out on.
I mean, it all comes down in the storytelling, as I said. I mean, case in point, I was in St. Lucia in October. While I was there, I did a lot of photos, Instagram, Facebook,
yes,
Twitter,
I saw that Jade Mountain, very jealous.
You name it. And then in January, I wrote a couple of blog posts, and I, promoted the heck out of it. And 2 weeks ago, I got an email from, one of my readers, basically saying, "You inspired me." And she basically said, "You showed me a different side to the Caribbean region." And based off of my content, she booked a trip for her apartment for 9 days and stayed in 3 different hotels. I mean, she basically did my trip. So I basically showed her different parts of the island, and not just the beaches and how beautiful it was. So it was about the plantations. It was about the national park. So all these different places that have culture, heritage, and a story, behind them. I drew those out, and she was like, "Oh wow, maybe I should go there," because she tends to travel to like Europe. I mean, because I asked her these questions after she sent me the email. She's like, "I tend to go to Europe, but you showed me a different." I was like, "Yes, that is what it's about. It's like inspiring people to." Do that booking. I mean, that's what real influence comes down to. And so it's not necessarily about having 100,000 followers on Instagram. It's like, okay, can you get your followers, readers to book now? And that's what it's about. And you can do that with 30,000. You can do that with 50,000. So it's about showing different aspects of that destination that it's going to bring out that island USP. So whether it's your festivals, it's your diving spots, whatever you're trying to market to. I mean, that's what you really have to push and get the right influences. Not just say, okay, this person has like 1 million followers, so I want them. Okay, well, how much content are they going to produce from that, and what's the timeline, and is it like the right audience? And okay, your product is $5,000 or whatever it is, but can they afford that? The audience. So it's like all these things that you have to weigh up, but it definitely can be done because it's $1 billion.
Yeah, I can remember attending a conference, and the lady who runs the Visit USA, an influencer marketing is a huge part of their marketing strategy for promoting the United States of America. And one of the key things that they don't actually work, of course they have the budgets to work with huge influencers, but they ran a series of campaigns with just micro influencers, and saw 3 times the results that they had done with working with one celebrity influencer, because these audiences, when you're working with micro influencers, are much more engaged. The audience want to, they're actually going to follow what the person is saying and doing and traveling. So there is a huge play for having an integrated campaign, which includes micro influencers, huge influencers, depending on your budget, celebrity influencers. Yeah, so let's move on to Ash real quickly, sorry. You work with lots of blogging, and you travel around the world and you share it from your Muslim perspective. So how do you think the industry can do more to attract diverse talent? And also tell us a little bit about how you work with travel brands to encourage your audience. Because you could be considered one of the micro influencers.
I'm a micro influencer in the Muslim world, based in the UK, so it kind of gives me various markets in one place, so it's really hard to place me because I get my Muslim audience who live in the Middle East, but again the Muslims who are in the UK and the US, so it's like I get a diverse Muslim audience as well. So back into diversity, it's super important because as you guys are saying, when you are seeing yourself represented, you are more likely to book that trip. So it's like so many people, for example, wrote about traveling in Portugal, loads. But then I wrote one specific one, and it was in Arabic, and it was very specific to a region, and I said exactly, I outlined everything. So when a person reads it, they're like, oh, okay, I could do this too. And then I get the personal emails from people wanting to do it. We're like, oh, was it safe? How were you perceived? There are things that other travelers don't always think about. I wouldn't jump to a plane and go to Australia at the moment because of political issues, but other people would. And it's very interesting to see how you are perceived when you're traveling into certain places. Like in Eastern Europe, depending on where you go, some people are super welcoming, some people are very apprehensive about you, and it's fine. It's absolutely fine for people to have opinions. But when I'm representing that and I'm testing how people reacting to me, obviously people sometimes are lucky or unlucky. It's really hard to tell. I can't always predict their experience, but I can at least be like, okay, I went there, it was fine, it was safe, I wasn't harassed, you could do it too. And it just bringing that connection between the destination and the person who wasn't even thinking about it. The Middle East is a huge market, and sometimes they're like, oh, where should we go to holiday? Let's go to London. And you speak to them and you're like, wait a sec, did you think of I don't know, go to Bosnia instead? Why don't you? And they're like, oh, I didn't know I could. And it's just that conversation that I could start as a content creator with them. And because they see me, they feel like they can do it too. And it's just when you see somebody who's very different, very glamorous, on Instagram, you don't really know that person. You're like, oh yeah, she's doing it because she's a wealthy family, she's from that background. But then when you show them, wait a sec, mid-range could do it too. And there are things that you could show your audience, and it's very much about the audience being very connected to that brand. So not every brand, even if they want a diverse audience, should work with a Muslim blogger. There are things don't marry well. Say it's an alcohol company, I wouldn't drink it. So it's gonna be weird. If somebody takes me to a wine tasting tour, it wouldn't even be beneficial to me or to my audience or anyone who's involved. So if you're just working with a brand, for example, when somebody approaches me, I say, okay, do we align? They should do their research, I should do my research, and to see how we match together. When I worked with Skyscanner, they had a very specific vision in mind. They wanted an Arab traveler who's a female who speaks Arabic. And if she lives in the UK, that would be even better, just for tax purposes. And they found me, and it was really good because I've already been promoting women-only retreat. So I'm seeing what fits for you as a brand and what the marketer or like the content creator can create for you. Because like when I do my blogs, and my vlogs, they have a long lifespan, so people can come back to that and just like really connect. And I will be always there on social media, so it's really easy for people to come and talk to me and be like, hey, how was it? I still get so many questions about Portugal from last year. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll help you book this. Like, you can go to Skyscanner, but it's okay. We can do a call and we can do that. But it's like, people can reach out to me and do that when a huge influencer does it. It's like, you get lost in their DMs or never get a glance. So there are so many options. I hope that answers the
like
question.
you guys are like the new source for like travel agents, almost like travel agents.
A little-ish, like
a little
there
ish
is
inspiration to come to you guys to get inspiration, get who I should book with, where should I go to get all that information from you. And I think what is really great is that you get to target, working with micro influencers specifically, you get to really target them to audiences that are quite profitable that we might necessarily be missing out on because of lack of diversity in your social media marketing or in your mainstream marketing as well. So having a mix in your marketing campaign, you include these influencers into fan trips or whatever the case is, or press trips, it does add that extra value, definitely. So moving on to Richard. Richard, talk to me as a destination guide. Talk to me from a destination perspective. To what extent are destinations kind of willing to invest in a diverse mix of influencers? And then also, how do you kind of utilize the content that's produced by influencers to give your campaigns longevity?
Cool. Okay, so first off, I agree with everything that Lisa has said. Secondly, for the Cayman Islands, it's very important for us for diversity because we have 135 different nationalities, so it's important that that's reflective. However, I'll go back to however, I'm in marketing. So I'm in marketing for the Cayman Islands, and I think often when I look at other campaigns, I speak to other influencers, and even in honesty for ourselves, this is a very new area for us. For the Cayman Islands, I'd say we've been doing influence programs for about 2 years now. And I think you treat it, to begin with, as a marketing campaign. You put X amount of budget towards a marketing campaign, and you say, right, what's my target audience? These are my target audience, and you treat it a little bit like marketing in general. This is my target audience, how do I reach the most amount of my target audience for the amount of money that I spend? And you do typically a fan trip. So you take a fan trip out, and all influencers may all be asked to do the same. Can you post once a day in all various locations that look beautiful and lovely? And I think all Caribbean destinations relate to that because we all have beautiful beaches. But 100% coming back to what you're saying, luckily for me, we are a learning organisation, so that isn't how we just run our our influencer programs. Instead, we like you guys say, we don't go for those giant mass market influencers that we can't have that connection with. Instead, we try and go for the small influencers. Maybe one is a travel blogger, maybe one is a culinary lover, maybe one really focuses on wildlife, and they might all still be out on the same group, or they might still be crisscrossing different activities, but the concentration is different. And going back to the second point, of how we make sure it lasts a long time, is we make sure that we have a contract for every single person that's completely different. So you don't say, right, I've got 5 influencers on this one trip, here is the influencer terms and conditions, I want you all to have the same T's and C's. You will get something out of that, but it will be a little bit more just like a normal advert in whatever it is going to be. That will be your output. But instead, if you work with every individual influencer as an individual, right, what's your audience? How do you interact with your audience? You actually talk to your audience, that's amazing. Right, let's get them involved in planning some of your trip. Maybe you can actually say, right, should I go jet skiing today, or should I go on a banana boat, or should I have a mojito, or should I have a mudslide? And have that interaction element with them before, after, during, and that is how you create kind of a longer campaign. And you also have that interaction with their audience, but also you want to try and make sure that your influencer becomes a brand ambassador. So I mean, you are effectively a brand ambassador now in Portugal, because you're answering a question about Portugal a year later. Yeah. So that would be important for me as a marketer to pick someone that is actually invested in the islands and they fall in love with the islands. and then they therefore always happy to post or share. And you might be a year later and you actually want to post another picture, say, I want to go back to the Cayman Islands, again, please take me, or blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I mean, it is important, and how you do that, I think, is in picking the right people, obviously, but B, just not just having a flat out, this is what we're doing. Just try and tailor-make your itinerary, your contract, your expectations, because one influencer may have a great YouTube channel, so let's try and make sure that the content that they're doing is great for their YouTube channel as well as just Instagram. Maybe one has a great Facebook poll, one really concentrates on food, so let's create something new. Yeah, that's how I see it.
So do you have a tough vetting process to get on one of your influencer trips?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't, like probably a lot of destinations, we do get approached by a lot of influencers, and what we'll say is that we keep an eye on everyone. So if someone comes to us, it's very rare that we'll say yes or no straight away. So we'll keep an eye, we'll keep an open dialogue with that influencer, we'll see what they're producing, does it marry well with our brand, are they the right fit for us, how do they engage with us as well.
In terms of longevity, this is both to you and Amy as well, in terms of the longevity, again, keeping campaigns going after the influencers left, is there like specific things that you make clear to influencers, like I want you guys to still be producing content 6 months from now? How does that work? I'm sure. And how do you encourage your destination brands, especially, to see the benefit in influencer marketing campaigns, and not as it's just a one?
If you pay someone loads of money, they'll do it.
But
it's a fact of life. But if you haven't, then it's based on the relationship you have within the destination. So, for example, with everyone's seen Ainsley's Caribbean Kitchen. So we can go, we had an influencer conference in Antigua last year, we had a lot of content creators from all different YouTubers and bloggers and Instagrammers. And with them, we could then say, remember, Caribbean Kitchen's coming out, so then they can do memories of Antigua, the links to it. So you give them a reason to make it newsworthy that then they can repost or something like that. So it's using them, but not abusing them.
not abusing them.
Or pay them loads of money.
Okay, so we can open up, at this time we're going to open the floor to any questions. Any questions for our influencers? Go on, Paul.
I'm Paul from Secret Escapes, and this is probably one for Amy, potentially. It's more around when you're looking at influencers, there's a whole big thing that I've seen quite maybe in the last year or two about people paying for increasing their social following, and how that engagement happens. From your perspective and potentially yours, how do you try and filter out those? Do you use tools? Do you perhaps it's just monitoring?
You can
just
see,
to make
you can
sure,
use some tools to see who's paid, so you can track them. So usually if they've paid, usually I just bin them off, unless I really like them, and then you and then you ask them, because I think that's the bit about travel is, I feel like not only do we have a duty of care because you're spending money on someone going to somewhere, but you see the ones that are going to a B&B and pulling all over someone's eyes, and it's just a little motel place that that's their livelihood, and you're actually ripping someone off. So you need to be honest. So and you probably tell it very direct. So just be upfront and say, did you pay for them? Why did you pay for them? Don't do that again. And just say no. Because the thing is that the good ones don't. And if they have made a mistake in the past, they'll own up to it. And if they are any good, they're worth working with, and there are enough influencers out there that you can afford to lose it if you don't like it. That's what I'd say.
No, I'd say the same. There are tools out there that you can monitor how many followers, unfollowers they may be doing, how many paid, suspicious bulk followings there is as well.
Some spikes, April was very good.
But then you also have to, like you say, if you just kind of bin them straight off, then I would say don't do that either, because, you should be able to just go through and have a look. And your gut is one of your strongest assets you have. You can see by the interaction, if all their comments are, yeah man, this is awesome, fine, then you know, this is a robot that's clearly posting on all their pictures. If, however, the dialogue's actually still really good and related to it, you might think, well, why does this report show that they have this giant mass following, but actually my gut says it's good? Ask them. It might be that actually they've...
Question for Ezra. What was your journey to become an influencer? Because obviously, I'm sure you're aware every child, every teenager now wants to be an influencer.
Because they don't know how much work is involved. There's like so much work, no one has an idea. It's like I wrote a blog post about like the behind the scenes of like how crazy it can be. Well, the thing is, I started traveling for my education. So that was like my first thing. So I went to the US to get a degree, came to the UK to do another degree, went to like different cities to do degrees. My first, yeah, it's crazy.
Do you have?
Working on my third one, like my last, I'm not doing anymore. And then from that, it's like, it started with art trips. To learn more about different types of art. And it just like, when I was there, I was tired of repeating myself, of just telling people, okay, so I went to Spain, this was my route, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, let me just blog about it and give everyone the same link. So that was like the beginning. And from there, I was like, this is fantastic, I love this. And it's just like, I kind of started to build it up, so I've been doing it for over 4 years, and it's just like, using my own money to go to places and talk about them honestly, and I try to kind of make them more than a travel guide. Sometimes I just come up with a travel guide, but sometimes I try and get a story out of the place to share it with people, to connect more rather than the surface of like, sometimes people travel in a bubble. I don't want them to do that. I want them to kind of get out of like the resort and just actually walk and chill out with people. Like when I was in Greece, I was in a cafe by myself, and I just like met all these random people that I've never seen in my life, and we're like, oh my gosh, we should totally be friends. It was great.
Any other questions? Lisa, can I just pull on you for 1 minute? I know you guys at Grenada, Lisa's from Grenada Tourism Authority, and I know you guys do a lot of work specifically with diverse influencers. You see on social media all the time. How is that working for you guys? I put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
I wasn't expecting to be on the spot. It's going back to what Ursula was saying, especially for me. Although I work for the Grenada Tourism Authority, my heritage is actually Grenada and Trinidad. And you do find that the second and third generations, they don't care. Yeah. And you have to explain this to head office, who assume because they have the heritage, they will instantly go to the island. So we are finding it's a slow process where we are learning and teaching HQ, but at the same time from the UK market, we really do just have Europe down the road. And we're finding, unless you're trendy, a lot of people are not going to care. So INAFA, for example, look at the price contrast. I'm sure some of the tour ops can say in the room. Samson can definitely confess that because he is Grenadian heritage. How many times do you go back to Grenada?
I went probably 2 years ago.
There we go. And where did you stay?
In a hotel.
Okay. For the whole 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Prior to that, have you stayed in a hotel?
Was it Grenada?
Yes.
Upstairs.
There you go. So most of the time, we're always getting the feedback of when you go, you're going to spend time with family. If you are going, why am I going to go and spend time with doing activities? We're finding that activities aspect is lost. And our biggest lesson is during Carnival. We was up 40% for the UK market for Spice Mass. Did anybody go and do the underwater sculpture park? Did anybody go up to the rainforest in the north of the island? Does anybody that went to Carnival during that time, that second, third, and fourth generation, did they do anything outside of that than partying, drinking, and everything else, as you know? So that is our biggest hurdle, and that's our obstacle, but at the same time, it's a lesson. Maybe we need to offer deals when they're down, and some incentives. So that in itself is creating more of a dialogue for us to create in future times.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Yes.
And if we have no more questions from the audience, I'm going to call our panel discussion to a close. They will be around for our networking session, so feel free to ask them any questions or queries. If you'd like some more information on the research project we did on the African Caribbean travel market, please let me know and I can get that for you guys. But
Well, Colin, would you like to bring the meeting to a close? Are you happy for me to go ahead and just end it all?
I was actually quite shooting out there, which was fine. But thanks so much for coming. I believe there's a copy of the annual report